Okay, so a lot of you are at the point where you are going to want to create your own Blackout poem from an actual book or text. So up to this point, you should have finished the packet, and then you'll be moving on to making your own poem. Now, each teacher may do this a little bit differently on how you can get a book to do Blackout poetry. For me, I have a bin in my room that's labeled BOP, which stands for Blackout Poetry. And then in that box are novels, books. I usually pick books from my shelf that are falling apart, or I buy some from Goodwill. And they also have labeled BOP. You cannot just take any book off the shelf and tear out a page. I mean, seriously, books don't work right when pages are torn out. The reason why you can tear out of these is we have decided that these books are no longer going to be read and can be used for Blackout poetry. So do not tear pages out of a book that does not say BOP on the front. Absolutely not. So you must take from the BOP box. That's for me. Again, ask your teacher exactly where you get the books for Blackout poetry. So then what you're going to want to do is you're going to flip through the book really and choose any page. Some kids get stuck in this where they're like reading and paging through when really it doesn't matter what page you choose. I mean, you can take any page. What I usually do is kind of crease, and when you pull it out, you want to pull down and away because you don't want it to tear across. So we're just going to pull and kind of hold the binding back, and we're going to pull down and away so we get a pretty close tear. You're now done with this book. Take it, put it back in the BOP bin. You don't need it anymore. If you don't like this jagged edge, I actually think it's kind of cool. You can just trim it with a scissor too. But now this is what you're going to base your Blackout poem from. Number one, I suggest you read through the page, start to finish, to get a sense of what it says. Blackout poetry is accidental. I don't know any other way to describe it, meaning the poem kind of comes out accidentally. As you go, it just emerges. So the first thing I always do is I start with a pencil, because as you go, you might box out some words, and then as the page continues, you change your mind and you erase something. So start with a pencil. Don't use a Papermate or a Sharpie until you're for sure that that's the ones you want. Your poem needs to be the entire length of one page. It doesn't really matter how many words it is, but your poem has to make sense. And that means your poem will be read left to right, top to bottom, just like regular poems. The words that you choose have to go together and make sense. It can't be just a random set of words that have no common tie, it has to make sense as you read it, top to bottom, left to right. So I've got this page here. I'm going to circle right away. I like the words stealing it. So I'm simply going to put a box around stealing it. And I think that's how I'm going to start. I like screamed with laughter. And I just keep going. I like around a corner. Now, I'm taking sets of words. You can take one word at a time. You can take 2 words, 3 words. You can even go way in, and let's say you want the word the, okay? But there's not a the available. You can take the T and the H and the E and then black out everything around it and make the word the. You can piece together words if you need them. And another example, let's say you want the word discover, but not the word discovered. Simply box discover, and later you'll black out the E and the D. So I'm just going to continue going through here. And so stealing it, screamed with laughter, around a corner. I love at full speed. Love that as well. Rolling behind him. I love zigzagging. So I'm just going to keep going, and you'll notice the poem kind of builds. Stealing it, screamed with laughter, around a corner, at full speed, rolling behind him, zigzagging. You already get a sense of that this poem is about something like a chase or a race of some sort. I I might jump down, he would have leaped. I like that too. Couldn't risk. I like couldn't risk. It was like playing. And I'm just going to keep doing this to the end, and then I'm going to reread it, and if I'm happy with what I end up getting, I'm then going to take my Papermate. So you either have this or your teacher will supply some. And now that I know that these are the words I want, I'm going to, with my thin marker, go around and box the words that I want to keep. The reason why we do this step is so when we start blacking out with our thicker marker, we don't accidentally color over a word we need. Like we don't want to accidentally go over the R in corner because then it's not going to read correctly. So I'm just going through and with my thin marker, keeping carefully all the things that I need. I'm not going to do the whole thing just for time's sake. The next step is you're going to use your Sharpie. Again, you either have to supply this or a teacher may have a way to check one out. Sharpies bleed. This is paper from books is very thin. So do not do this blacking out directly on your desk. It will bleed through onto your desk and you'll have permanent Sharpie on a desk that a teacher is going to make you take some time to clean up. So what I always do is take another sheet of paper and put it underneath. You could maybe even double this, but I'm putting a piece of scratch paper that I don't care about underneath. And what I always like to do is give my poem a bit of a frame. So I go around kind of my blacking out edge where the poem is going to be. And again, you'll use your whole page, but I'm just doing this. And then I just start blacking out everything I don't want. And when I say blacking out, I mean blacking out. Like you have to black it out. Be very careful when you get to the edges of the words you want to keep, but you should go right up to the edge. So you're blacking out all the words you don't want. You may need to give your marker a rest a couple times. It likes to dry out. But I'll give you an example of one that's done a little bit more. So see how it bled through? That's why I need a piece of paper. So here is, you can see I've blacked out. And if I were to keep going, I would just keep doing this until it was solid black, except for the words I want to keep. This is my poem. When you're done, you may decide on a title. The directions in the station then tell you to frame your poem using construction paper and place it in your INB. Have fun.